Do you suffer from chronic illness, anxiety, or sleep disorder? If so, CBD may be for you. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Martin A. Lee. Along with Reader's Digest, he's put together this essential guide to CBD. I've also got Charlie Ziese. We're going to talk about sacred geometry and the power of pyramids, all on this week's Guys TV. You can also catch me on Guys Radio on KCAA in Southern California and my worldwide podcast, Guys TV, Guys Radio. Thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, we're in the interview portion of our show once again, and we've got a special guest. He's going to talk about pyramids. Have you ever thought about pyramids? Do you realize, those pyramids in Egypt and there's other ones around the world, and have you ever wondered why pyramids or what they're all about? We've got a really sharp guy. His name is Charlie Ziese. He works with something called Stargate Pyramids and the Pyramid Science Foundation. He was in the investment world in worldwide finance, and he just after 2008 decided he was going to make a turn in the road in his journey, and he decided to do research on pyramids. And he'll get into that. But basically, he studied Russian pyramids, and he set up what's called the Sacred Geometry of Russian Pyramids. He's a chair of the Pyramid Science Foundation. He's got a book coming out on Russian pyramids later this year. And he also works very much in sacred geometry. I'm not too familiar with it. Maybe you folks out there aren't too familiar with it, but Charlie is, and we're gonna get into that, and we're gonna keep it on a level that hopefully we can all comprehend it together, and Charlie can teach us a little bit. But the most important thing is pyramids. Why are pyramids powerful? How can we use them to enhance our lives, etc.? Welcome to Guys Radio, Charlie Ziese.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me today.
Well, it's my pleasure. So why don't we start right at the beginning quickly with your story. You were in the world of high finance, and then you made your turn and you started following pyramid research. What drew you to that, and why do you think you just kept going?
Well, I listened to David Wilcock about 6 years ago. He did a series on Gaia TV called Wisdom Teachings, and he did a 10-part series on these very pyramids that I'm now building and researching myself. So there was a lot of science. That's what got me. I was a science major in college, and so I quite honestly, 10 years ago, if you'd asked me about pyramids, I would have said it was a lot of foo-foo. But when I saw the science, I got interested, and one thing led to another. I decided to try to build one for myself. And once I did that and saw that the experiments that had actually been done in Russia could be replicated, at least the ones that I was able to do, and they worked, then I was hooked. So one thing led to another. And as you mentioned earlier, once I discovered what the sacred geometry of these pyramids was, I found relationships with the Gize pyramids. Lots of things started to unfold, and I decided to write a book about it. So it's a never-ending journey.
It's fantastic, and it's really fascinating because there is power in pyramids. So when people think of pyramids, a lot of times they think of the typical three-sided triangle with a bottom, but that's not necessarily the case. There's many multi-sided pyramids. There's a lot of aspects to pyramids. So first of all, let's start with, what is a pyramid?
Well, I mean, by definition, a pyramid has essentially the common pyramid that we're used to has four sides and a base, and they can come in all sorts of different geometries. They can be highly sloped like the Russian pyramids, or they can be flatter like the Egyptian pyramids, and a lot of that has to do with their specific functionality, but an awful lot to do with sacred geometry. And the pyramids that I work with, they were studied in Russia pretty extensively, primarily for their health benefits. And I think that's something that's important for your audience to understand. This pyramid, the research done in Russia indicates that it improves our immune function enormously by being around these pyramids. And they did a number of studies on humans, on mice, the reduction in cancer, the reduction in deaths of premature high at-risk babies whose immune functions were severely impaired because of their premature nature. All of these had dramatic results. So first and foremost, I build these pyramids for the health benefits to the individual.
Okay, so for benefit of our listeners who are not on the YouTube portion of our show, Charles is sitting in one of his pyramids. So describe first of all, how does a pyramid work to have these positive benefits, in your opinion? And then secondly, you're in kind of an open-ended pyramid, which it
Right.
looks like the framing of a tent almost, but it's shape, of
That's
course,
right.
in the shape of a pyramid. And Charles
Yeah.
is sitting in there, and I got a lot of questions about how these work because people are very curious about it. And mutual friends of ours, the Adlers, had used it, and they sing the praises of it. But I've got to think that you really have to know how to use it correctly, because when you're working with energy, you have to be careful. It can be super beneficial, but you really have to know what you're doing. So why is it that pyramids are beneficial? And then how do you construct what you have, and why do they work?
Sure. Well, simplistically, we've got to start with an idea that unfortunately isn't taught in our science curriculum, and that's the concept of the ether. The ether has been in our scientific lexicon up until about 100 years ago, when some experiments were attempted to be replicated in the United States that had been successfully done in Russia, which is really the country with the home of the great torsion physicists on the planet. But when they were not successfully replicated, and they weren't replicated for a reason, because they didn't follow the protocols that were done in Russia. But anyway, the ether, we are living in a seething sea of energy. If you cup your hands together, you have more energy in the palms of your hands than it's necessary to boil off the oceans on the entire planet. So, with that said, what the Russian physicist, and a particular one's name was Anatoly Akimov, he did experiments that showed that any sort of a form like a cone or a pyramid would have the ability to generate and amplify energy fields by virtue of its geometry. And what he found was that this golden section, or phi, this is the sacred geometry part, and that's all we'll say today, but this phi ratio, if you can find that and it's in the geometry, those pyramids are going to be energy producers.
Okay, so it's phi phi.
PHI, not PI, like the circumference of a circle. This is PHI. And the number is like 1.61803399. It goes on and on and on, but it's what it is. It's a scaling constant in nature. And as difficult as this concept in a brief time is to wrap around your head, there is a theory, or we're developing theories that demonstrate that pure thought can become, that nature has a way of taking that and making concrete reality out of it. And geometry plays a very big role in that.
Okay, so you're sitting inside this pyramid structure that's open-ended on all sides, and it has the framework. How do you determine the exact shape of it, the height of it, the materials in it, how long to sit inside of it, and then where is positioning necessary, where you sit, etc., and what materials you use?
Okay, boy, a lot of questions here at once. First, the geometry. I developed this geometry. The Russians have never disclosed it, but I was able to figure it out using this very phi ratio. And I did it by theorizing. All of the quantum physicists today all believe that creation begins in a sphere. So let's start with that. And we know that there has to be some kind of a scaling ratio. So I took a stack of spheres and used this very phi ratio of 1.618. And I decided to divide the diameter of the base one by that amount, and the next one and the next one going up. And when you put those spheres together in a stack or a pile, and then built a pyramid around it, I came up with this geometry. And as it turns out, the angle from the floor up to the base, which is called the slant angle of 76.345 degrees, is exactly the same angle in the Gize pyramid that's at the top of that pyramid. That can't be an accident. So, I know that it's valid. And more importantly, I think, Robert, for your audiences to know, is that this geometry is found in all of the ancient religious traditions. It goes all the way back to the Hindu temples, the Buddhist temples. It was brought from the East to Western Europe during the Crusades. You find it in the cathedrals and on into our church steeples today.
Mhm. Okay, Guys Radio. My special guest is Charles Ziese of the Pyramid Science Foundation. We're talking about the power of pyramids. So, is there different ways that you can use pyramid power? For instance, I do a meditation from Fritz Smith. It's called zero balancing. And basically, what you do is you intend yourself to be inside of a pyramid and you sit there and you let everything out and you go through a meditation.
Mhm.
Yours are physical pyramids. Is
Right.
there a difference? What materials do you use, etc.? Tell us just everything about these pyramids that you
Yeah.
work with.
Okay.
And if it's the power, what's the difference between your pyramids and the power of pyramids in general?
Okay. Well, it seems as though for this particular pyramid geometry is built more to provide energy to things inside of it and around it, whereas perhaps the Giza pyramids and some of the others are built more to either make modifications to the earth. But essentially, it's just the structure itself. You don't need walls to make this work. There's a lot of sacred material. If your audience is aware of the law of one material, for example, that David Wilcock refers to quite often, it says to use non-base metals in the construction of a pyramid. Otherwise, like copper, is going to detract severely from the energetics of the pyramid. So, uh, but I sit inside this every day for half an hour at the beginning of the day in the morning, and I meditate under here. The geometry of this pyramid, because it is actually the ratio or the geometry that nature uses for the creative process, it amplifies and magnifies my meditations, and I find that I can manifest things a lot more quickly when I ask for them inside the pyramid. And there's a double-edged sword to that. You don't want to be under it when you're angry or upset, because then it's going to come back and bite you just the other way.
So it amplifies. It can amplify feelings then.
That's right. It amplifies your thoughts. It clarifies it. A good example is your headlights in a fog. They don't go very far. They're very dispersed. The pyramid actually clarifies the background and takes that background energy, makes it dissipate, and actually brings it into the the standing wave of your intentions, so to speak. This is very, very much involved with harmonics as well, which of course we don't have time to get into. But if you think about overtones and so forth on your piano when you hit a middle C, that's the kind of thing that happens. But it takes out all of the other disparate frequencies and combines them and magnifies them.
So, as I mentioned, when I do my zero balancing meditation and I intend myself inside of this pyramid, that would have similar impact theoretically, correct?
Well, it does. It's interesting you bring that up because I know your audience can't see this, but when you think about people in the kind of the classic yoga pose with the hands in front, that is the very geometry. And I try to think of that geometry while I'm meditating as well, because it seems to have a powerful effect, adding to the benefits of being inside the pyramid.
Okay, so how tall is the pyramid you're in right now?
It's 6.5 feet tall. I have three models. One's 5.5 feet tall, which would only be right for sitting on the floor, but I'm sitting in a chair. And I make another one that's a little bit bigger if you want to put a larger, like an overstuffed chair or something like that in it. So I have three different sizes of meditation pyramids.
Okay. Does it matter where you sit inside the pyramid, and does it matter how long you stay? You mentioned 30 minutes. Are there any caution to staying inside the pyramid too long, even if you're in a deep meditation?
I don't know of anyone who has had any harm come to them from being inside the pyramid, but I will tell you certain people who are highly energy sensitive uh, may find that even just a few minutes of exposure is enough and they get a little uncomfortable. But for the vast majority of people, I sit in it for 30 minutes just because I need to get up and do other things. But I also have the pyramid in my bedroom. And so it intensifies and amplifies the energy fields inside my bedroom for quite well, any pyramid will do that for quite some distance around it. So that seems to be enough for me to keep me healthy. I haven't I used to get chest colds every winter time living in the Northeast. And since I started building the pyramids, I've had no health issues whatsoever, not a sniffle. I broke my ankle a couple of years, 10 years ago, started building these pyramids. The aches and pains associated with that are completely gone.
Okay, you
So,
mentioned harmonics, Charles, and forgive me for going fast, but I want to get as much information out there as possible in as little time as that we have. Sound. Do you use sound inside the pyramid, and does that amplify the benefits of having a session?
one of the most important pieces of research that we're doing right now is with sound healing. We're using solfeggio frequencies and certain variations on those. I actually make a product called a caduceus coil that will play those and make scalar waves out of them instead of having them in the audio range. It seems to be able to bypass the subconscious blocks to healing that many people have, and seems to have a very profound impact on personal health. So yeah, we work a lot with sound healing. And we're actually starting a survey of all the people who have these pyramids, and we're going to be checking in specifically on sound healing to get a significant sample size of people's before and after responses.
Okay. Well, you mentioned solfeggio tones. We listen to them on our home. We turn on this the little boombox thing, and it's different levels, and it goes for
Yeah.
about an hour in the background. For our audience, I'm sure you can articulate it a lot better than I can. How does solfeggio tones work? Do you work with them ascending or descending?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to work with them. I work with the research that was done by a gentleman named G.W. Hardin. He has a website called soundsofwonder.com. He's had actually some visitations from the angelic realm, has developed a lot of information there. So it's kind of hard to too much to get into right now, but there's a whole science to this, and that's why we're looking for people, and a sample size large enough to figure out how all this stuff really does work.
Okay, so for people who are interested in this, are there places that they can go to experience pyramid meditations? Sitting inside a pyramid, are you the only place where they can go to buy one? How widespread is this?
Sure. Well, of course, I sell them on stargatepyramids.com. And Robert, I'll give your audience, if anybody is interested in purchasing, a coupon code, Manni 10%.
Okay.
And that will get them 10% off of their pyramid and or caduceus coil purchase. We traditionally went to expos around the world. For example, Conscious Life Expo. I was there several years ago, but we haven't in LA. We haven't been doing those because of COVID. So the best way to get information about these has been through YouTube channels and being on shows such as yours, just to get the word out. In terms of your other, I forgot your other question. You had a second one there, but the best way to experience this, I guess, is if you don't have one, is to go and listen to some of the testimonials that we have. Our website, our YouTube page, which is done through the foundation, has a number of interviews talking about the science behind these, as well as some testimonials for people.
You had answered the second question, so that's why I didn't go back to it. Let's see what else we can find out about this. What else does the audience really need to know? Let me go back to the one question I had asked earlier, and that is, does it matter within? It looks like a tight fit there. Does it matter if you're up front in the pyramid, if you're in the back of the pyramid, off to the sides? What's the difference?
Well, different places within the pyramid are going to have different kinds of energy, but in general, the higher up you are inside the pyramid, the more energetic it's going to be. The tip of the pyramid, for those of you who are familiar with the concept of the torus, the top of the pyramid really is sort of that donut hole space inside the torus where all the creative potential exists. We measure energy fields with certain devices, and the frequency of unity is at the top of the pyramid. You have more earth energies and so forth at the bottom, but in terms of sitting inside the pyramid, it's certainly the most effective place to be. You might want to stand up if you care to, and you might get a little bit more energy. But I think just being inside the pyramid itself, it raises when we douse and use other techniques. It's just a huge quantum jump,
Okay.
irrespective of whether you're standing or sitting.
Obviously, you've done a lot of work to calibrate these precisely. What if somebody sleeps in a teepee? Do they get a similar effect, but in, not quite as powerful? But is that
Right.
healthy? Is it anytime you're inside of that pyramid shape, is that something that's
Yep.
beneficial?
Well, one of the interesting things actually that I figured out when I started to write the book, I looked at teepees, and not the contemporary teepees, but the original teepees of the Native Americans are very, very close to the Giza geometry pyramids. Now, my partner Lisa Richards, who makes capstones and accessories, she says the difference is the Giza pyramids like dial-up internet, and the Russian pyramids like high-speed internet. So the energy field is much more dramatic inside the Russian pyramid, but it's more subtle, and it may be that living inside the teepee, that's a preferable geometry to use because it's a bit more subtle.
So if you had a bedroom that was shaped like a pyramid, would
Yes.
that be a good thing?
Well, I think it would be. I think a whole house would be, to be honest. There've been some people who have built pyramid houses, and they have dramatic effects on their environment. One person in Illinois built one, and water started to come up from the ground. He literally had to build a moat around the house because of all of this water. So there's some unintended, consequences to pyramids, but it shows the dramatic nature of the energy fields that they produce.
Now, if somebody created their own pyramid just using materials, you have some kind of like adjustable, looks like piping type of material.
Yeah.
Would they get the same benefit, or does it have to be calibrated very precisely?
Well, I actually on the Pyramid Science Foundation website, I have all of my research out in the public domain. My geometry, I teach people how to make these if they want to make them themselves from materials available at Home Depot. You can make one for $30. It's not going to be pretty like this one because this is furniture grade pipe, but you can build one and you'll get the same energetics as you're going to get from this pyramid. And so I've done that. I put out all of my information to the public because I want this info. I'm not at this. I worked on Wall Street and I did that to make money. I'm doing this to make a living, but I'm really doing it to get the word out and the benefits out to the public.
Well, fantastic. It's fascinating, and I'm sure we can go deeper and deeper. Maybe we'll do it at another time. Until then, I want to read up some more, and I hope everybody out there wants to check out Charles and his work. So tell everybody where they can find out more about you, Charles, and your Pyramid Science Foundation and
Okay,
pyramids.
sure. Go to stargatepyramids.com. That's the website where I sell pyramids, caduceus coils, and Lisa Richards has some other accessories such as capstones for the pyramids. In terms of the research, it's the Russian pyramid research that was done in Russia is also extensively summarized on that website.
Great.
Or how-to videos and interviews and the like, go to YouTube and find the Pyramid Science Foundation homepage, and there's about 200 interviews or videos that I've done in various aspects of pyramid science.
Fantastic. And we'll look forward to the book at the end of the year. Let me know when you have that ready, and we'll get you back on the show again. Charles Ziese on Guys Radio. Great job.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me.